All right, tell the YouTube people what we're up to this time.
Okay, here it is, May the 6th, 2015, and we drove up the Spectacle Gap Road, and right now we're up here when I was a child, there used to be a fire tower right up here. You can see some of the rocks where the fire tower sat on.
There's some block slabs there and a set of steps where there used to be a tower.
And there was a little cabin here. I'm sure it was made of...
We're thinking that pile there's what's left of it.
Made of rocks and slabs, stone.
Yeah.
And one day when we were kids, little kids, two of my brothers and my sister and I walked up here from our camp, which is about from here, 5 miles.
At least
5 miles, and there was a lady and a man that stayed here because he was the fire tower keeper, and what his job was to sit clear up on the top of this big fire tower and keep watch in case there was a fire. And that makes sense, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And this lady was so nice. She had just made cookies, oatmeal cookies. I can remember that. It's probably 75 or 80 years ago when I was just a kid. And she gave us each a cookie. And that cookie was so good. I suppose we were hungry from walking up here.
I would imagine that it was crazy getting up here in a truck. Imagine walking.
I'm surprised that our mother left us do that. But when we were in the mountain, we pretty much run wherever we wanted to go. If we wanted to go down and swim in the creek, we did. If we wanted to take a walk. So I can't imagine how long it took us to walk up here and back. When we got back, we were almost back to our cabin. And there was a big rattlesnake going across the road. And we stopped, and of course we were all scared. Even my older brother, because he was just a kid too then. And we were afraid to keep walking. It did get down over the bank, but we still stood there. That big snake's down in there. And a couple guys came along in a truck. I think they worked for the state. And they stopped, and we told them, there's a big rattlesnake down in there. So they looked, and they didn't see it. It had gone. So they said, well, jump in the back of the truck. So we did, and they took us the rest of the way back to camp, which wasn't very far then. And I don't know why I always remember that. But I remember the good cookies the lady gave us. I remember that darn snake. So here I am now with my grandson, who's 27 years old. And that had to be, I probably wasn't more than about 9. That would have been 80 years ago. And of course, like we talked about before, camping was our thing, the thing that we loved to do. And my parents did too. My dad made that camp, built it out of locust logs. Chestnut. The chestnut trees had died from the chestnut blight, but the trees lasted very long afterwards. It took a chestnut tree a long time to rot up, so he made a camp out of chestnut logs. And we spent lots of weekends in there, and a lot of times we took our neighbors' kids with us, and they had weenie roasts, marshmallow roast, s'mores, of course. When we left home, it was hot. Now up here on the mountain, it's chilly.
A little bit. I know it was certainly an interesting ride leading up to getting here.
Nathan took me places I'd never been before, off roads. I don't know if you'd even call it a road. A lane went back in someplace.
For anybody who's seen some of the videos on this channel, they'll know this location because we've done several videos there, but we went back past what we always referred to as the abandoned rock quarry. That's more properly known as O'Donnell Field.
This is the Spectacle Gap Road.
And people who've seen this channel will be familiar with this too. Because this is where we were the night in Kyle's car when the tree went over the road.
This is, when we get back down there, we'll be on Licking Creek. But I'm not sure what the name of the mountain that we're on right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact name of this mountain.
It's, we cross the Blue Mountain to get into Licking Creek from where we live. And I don't know if that's would be the Black Log Mountain.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. But anyhow, it was a nice ride. What we started out to do was to look for lady slippers. This time of year, there's a place right down here where the lady slippers grow. And my brother and my sister-in-law found this place years ago where the lady slippers grow. We always made a point of coming back here every May just to see the lady slippers. And I don't know if we'll find any on the way back or not.
Well, I say we move along and try to find them because it's starting to rain again.
I feel some sprinkles.
So we'll be back here if we find our lady slippers. Well, we didn't find any lady slippers, but we found this. So what is this?
Macon and I were driving down the road and looked over here and said, well, I never saw that before. And I said, yeah, I can remember years ago when this was here. But now they got it all remodeled. And
Yeah, you can tell that they've added new stones to it and fresh concrete. And I'll look over here. They put a new path coming in, and I never knew this was here.
see, this was the park down here where people came to picnic, and they'd get the water here. And I think it's just beautiful. I'm glad we renewed it. A lot of those old things that you remember, they just destroy them and never bring them back again. So,
Yeah, obviously somebody wanted to preserve this, because there it is.
really happy to. What are those yellow flowers anyway?
I'm not sure if I can get a shot of that from here or not, but there's some kind of flower.
It looks like they're not really done with it yet.
No, this definitely looks like a work in progress, but somehow we just happened to stumble across this.
But years and years ago, this was like this. There was the water coming out. And I was disappointed when I discovered it wasn't here anymore. And now they're renewing it, and it makes me happy.
Well, yeah, I never knew this existed. Like there's some sort of hook on the side of this thing here. They must have had little ropes or something and chains or something, and yeah.
Around it.
Like you can see up through the back here, they dug that all out and put a pipe in.
So, to me, it's beautiful. and when they get done with it, it'll be even more beautiful.
I guess so. Yeah, I had no idea this was even a thing.
Yeah, I have memories of it, but I didn't know how long ago it's been that this wasn't here. That for a long time it wasn't here.
Like you can look down in there and see they put a new drain in and everything.
Yeah. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to see them renew old things.
Well, that's like when we were trying to settle on locations to go today. One of the places we talked about was, like the senior center used to be the old railroad station.
Yeah, and things like that.
They repurposed that. Otherwise, that would have just been an old building rotting away.
Yeah, it makes you feel good to see them renew things.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you want a drink, you can come here and get a drink. I like the way they put the pipe in. It's like a fountain. You
Yeah.
drink out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get a closer look at that.
You don't need a cup.
Yeah, that's just a piece of pipe coming out of the rocks, and they pointed it up. So yeah, it does look kind of like a fountain. And there's the drain. Okay, so how are we going to end this one today?
Well, I was a little disappointed that we didn't find any wild lady slippers, but we still had a nice little ride. I enjoyed going up to where the old fire tower used to be. Then we come back by the way of the blind camp, and there's a cliff that goes up along the road there, and there's always a lot of wild columbine. And I always like to go over there when the columbine's blooming. And we did see some of that, but there was no place to pull off the road and park to get any pictures of them, but they were beautiful. And of course, we always enjoy a ride down through Licking Creek, although we don't see much wild animals anymore. Well, we did see one deer, and but we enjoyed seeing that water fountain. And I talked to Nathan about some things that I remembered from when the CC camp was in there. And this was the black CC camp for the black guys. There was segregation in those days. And the black CC camp, there's a sign in there that tells you, what was it, Nathan, 1930?
1933 to 1937.
That's how it was. The CCC camp, Civilian Conservation Camp, was a way to get the guys some work because it was a time in our history when there was no jobs for the young fellas right before the war. And so one of the things I remembered about going there with my parents, and I suppose there's some of the brothers and sisters. I only had 11 brothers and not 11 sisters.
Well, 11 altogether.
11 altogether, 5 brothers and 5 sisters. And we stopped at where the black CCC camp was, and my parents went in, I went in right behind them, and there was a guy, they were dancing. They had music, and like they were dancing with one another. But I looked up, and my parents left me standing there at the door, and I looked down, there's all these big black guys, and I've never been around any before, living out where I lived. And I ran out of there, ran down to where we had the car parked. and not that we were, none of us were prejudiced, but it was just that.
You never saw that before.
Yeah, being a little kid, and I've never been around anybody like that before. Never having a big time there. Enjoyed themselves. So later on, after the war and everything, and people had work then, there were no more CCC camps. You can still see the results of some of the things that they did in those CC camps, some of the work that they did. And later on, we had a little camp down there. One of the CC camps we had with my sister and her husband. We belonged to this little camp, or it belonged to us. I don't know if you really owned them or rented them. I think we owned it. I'm not sure how that worked out. But we used to have a lot of fun in that little camp. And there's still 3 small camps there. Originally there was a big camp like a dining room. And I think that's the one where these guys were dancing. It was a big long building. And several other camps were. That one camp that's there now is called Old Men's Rest Home, and one is a smaller camp. There's 3 camps there.
The one was just called Wind Gap Camp.
Wind Gap Camp. That's where this is located.
In Wind Gap.
Wind Gap. And there's still 3 camps in there that are still being used by people for.
We would have stopped there and showed it, but there was people there, and we didn't want to disturb them.
So, maybe some other time.
Well, any last words for this video?
Well, as usual, what we most enjoy is going back in the mountain. Licking Creek's one of them. Maybe someday we'll have to go down through Black Hog Valley and show some of the things down in there too.
Something I want to see if our viewers will do, and we don't have that many on this channel, but any questions that they want to ask you
You know, whether just about anything, advice or just about anything that you remember. I'll try and get some viewer feedback and see if you can, you know, answer some of their questions if they have any.
Some of the things that I remember Pearl Harbor, the day that happened, and my brother was there, and I think I have told that already too.
Right. So if anybody out there watching has anything they want to know, you know, leave it in the comments below, and you know, if in a future video, if there's anything there for us to talk about, well, there you go.
I remember the day the war was over. People went down to Lewistown and gathered around the square and just celebrated. Yelled and screamed, danced around, whoopee and all, just because the war was over. But it was a great time. I hope we never have another one. I hope nobody ever has to see a war. So, I had a brother at Pearl Harbor, another in the European theater, and then another brother was in during the Korean War, and another brother that went in right after the war, what they called the occupation army, when they occupied some of the places in Europe that had been overrun by the Nazis. So anyhow, that's about all I remember for today, Nathan.
All right, so as per usual, if you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe. And like I said, anything that you want to ask us, leave it in the comments below. So we'll see you next time.